This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by Case IH.
Coming up on This Week in Agribusiness, American cotton producers take stock of the crop in the field and the policy proposals in Washington. Hello everyone, thanks for joining us for This Week in Agribusiness. I'm Mike Pearson in the studio this week, and we'll also be joined by Max Armstrong a little bit later in the program. Before we do, though, we're going to talk about what's developing here in the cotton industry. It's been an interesting year for those producers, and joining us now to fill us in on how things are shaping up is Dr. Jody Campeacci. She's the Vice President of Economics and Policy Analysis with the National Cotton Council. And Jody, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
We've seen about a $10 rally here in the price of cotton over the past few weeks. Jody, is this concern that perhaps there's issues in the field?
So I think as we look at the current conditions with the 2023 crop, what we've been seeing from week to week is we've been seeing a continued decline in the condition of the crop in the Southwest in particular. So, last year we had a record level of abandoned acres. This year, we're not expecting that. However, conditions in Texas particularly just haven't been great this year. So the South Texas crop, of course, is being harvested and yields are definitely off in that area. And as we look across the rest of Texas, there's a few areas that are doing okay, but for the most part, conditions are declining. We've started to see that in Oklahoma as well in the last week. So I think overall, the trade initially expected a higher crop for this year. Now, those numbers continue to go down.
Jody, with those concerns in the Texas crop, is there hope that the southeastern Georgia Mid-Atlantic crop could make up for the drop?
So conditions in the southeast and the mid-south are improving. That crop has been late, really across the cotton belt. Most of the crop this year was late. However, what we're hearing is that conditions are getting better now that the crop is kind of catching up. So I think there's areas where we could have some above average yields, but there's areas where we could also have average yields. So I don't necessarily know that the mid-south and southeast crop is going to make up for the decline in the Texas crop.
All right, so we've got concerns around supply. Jody, the other side of that picture, demand. What are you seeing on the demand side, and are exports holding up this summer?
So for U.S. exports for the current, really the crop year that just ended, so the 2022-23 crop year, they've mostly met expectations. I think they may come in a little bit lower than USDA had originally expected, but they're still not as high as we have had in the past, but we had a much smaller crop last year. So, we export most of what we grow. So if we don't have the production, we don't have the exports. But for the most part, we have been on track. However, as we look to this next crop year that we've currently started, so the 23-24, there are concerns about demand. Now, we can look at all the data on consumer spending, on, everything, and then just on clothing and apparel products, and we'll see that spending really hasn't slowed down. Consumers are continuing to go more into debt. They're continuing to spend. However, we've had large inventories of clothing and textile products. So what I think is maybe we're working through some of those inventories, because if you look at textile mills and you ask them what their demand has been, the demand is just not there. In the U.S. and across the world, mill demand has been really, really weak. So there are concerns about that going forward.
All of those issues are there on the production side for growers. But Jody, there's always politics playing a role as well. This is a farm bill year. What are cotton producers hoping to see in this next legislation?
So I think overall, cotton growers, and then of course the rest of the cotton industry, has felt like the current farm bill structure has served the industry well. But for the 23 farm bill, some of the things that we're looking at is really just increased farm program support to reflect the higher cost of production and to continue to keep U.S. cotton competitive in the international market. So in particular, increase in the reference prices that are used in the ARC and PLC program, modernizing the Upland Cotton Loan Program, adding a loan program for ELS cotton, strengthening support for the U.S. textile industry, because we were just talking about demand, of course, so the textile industry is an important component of the U.S. cotton industry. And then just enhancing availability of the stacks program for cotton growers.
Jody, if we've got listeners who are curious about what cotton is proposing as we get closer to this farm bill, what's the best place to go for more information?
So, of course, we have our website, the National Cotton Council website, where we have information available for growers who are members. And, we also put out news releases, and we'll continue to put out information as we move forward into the Farm Bill process. So, of course, we haven't made it yet, but hopefully we'll end up with one this year.
Hopefully we will. That's Dr. Jody Campeacci, Vice President of Economics and Policy Analysis at the National Cotton Council. This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone Ag. The Firestone Ag Dealer Network offers you the support, inventory, and resources you need. Visit firestoneag.com to find your local certified dealer. And it's time to talk markets. Joining us this week is Garrett Toy of Ag Trader Talk. Garrett, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about the moves heading into Friday's USDA report. We had the World Agricultural Supply and Demand estimates, Garrett, but what was that managed money, that fund money doing ahead of the reports?
Well, they've been in a state of flux here. They want to try to get short this market. They don't want to carry a long position in corn whatsoever. They've had some short covering that's put them into a small long position. They've pared it back the last week or two. But that's kind of been, they're trading the fundamentals, the bearishness of the corn market. They want to be short wheat, but we have a headline out of Ukraine or Russia, and they cover that short. The short in wheat is probably one of the smallest since 2002 years, since 2021. Now we have a potential that we're going to trigger the VSR in wheat, increase storage rates, so that'll probably encourage more fund shorts in the wheat market. But there's no corn story right now, and funds don't really want to get long. You kind of see it. They get a little bit long, and they're quickly out of it. But it's kind of a choppy market where they don't want to get short either because headline risk.
So we did see USDA issue their World Agricultural Supply and Demand estimates. Garrett, what was the trade expecting before these reports came out?
Trade's looking for a small reduction in corn yield, 175 type yields. They're looking for soybeans down slightly to at 51.5. You got to remember that USDA did recognize the dry June in the July report and cut yields on that report, but they left soybeans unchanged. So in reality, this is the first report where we've had a look at soybean yields. It's versus expectations versus reality. You don't want to beat a drum here, but demand issues remain in the corn market. And while we've had supply issues, and there's still some questions on acres at some point, we really need to have a corn yield down at 165 in order to make that supply and demand look a little bit more interesting. And I just don't see it. There may be a surprise. Worst case scenario, long term, 173 or 172 type yield, similar to last year. But we'll see where we're at down the road.
You mentioned the demand stories, just not there for corn, for the stockpiles we've got on hand. Garrett, we've heard that weakness in exports. Is it also there in ethanol?
We're going to have some small adjustments in ethanol and old crop, in my opinion, by the time everything's said and done with. But ethanol margins are strong longer term. I think they'll be better in 23, 24. But the biggest issue in the corn export demand is just the size of this Brazilian corn crop, and how long that tail is going to be, where they're going to undercut our demand. We have zero export program for octane decent corn right now. We start to turn into January, February before we see export demand start to pick up, which if you're a farmer planning on bin space this fall and whether to store basis, that sort of thing, that's something we need to pay attention to.
That Brazilian corn crop, there's been concerns about their ability to export such a large crop. Garrett, are they getting it done?
Yes. Yeah, there should be any concern about whether they're going to be able to export it. Their soybean export programs basically come to an end here. And in fact, we're the cheapest soybean origin in the world, so that's going to be the shift. But in fact, this past week, it was their biggest week of corn exports ever. On a weekly basis, they're having no problem shipping corn.
Pricing on the global set. Garrett, you mentioned we're the cheapest global soybean producer. Now, where are we on corn? I went to vacation last month and we were $20 a ton, came back, we were $5, and then we had the flat price rally and the Brazilian farmer engaged, so now we're back to about $15, $20 a ton premium. The real weakness is really dictating a lot of that. I think that the farmers selling is starting to slow a little down there, which is putting U.S. back competitive. But any flat price rally, the Brazilian farmer is going to re-engage because they still have a lot to market. All right, we'll dig through more of these details with Garrett when we return. This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone Ag. Harvey Firestone invented the first pneumatic farm tire, forever changing what it means to farm hard. Visit firestoneag.com to learn more about this history and tire solutions for today. Welcome back. We're talking markets with Garrett Toy of Ag Trader Talk. And Garrett, you mentioned the changes that we might see in the soybean yield on this week's WASDE report. I'm curious about demand, crush, the profitability that folks making soy meal and soy oil have. How's that looking?
It's improving. In fact, we traded December crush to new highs this week. Crush margins are very strong. Similar trajectory as last year where we had crush end products rally into year end. Part of that was to soybean weakness. I don't necessarily, this time last year we were telling people that, if you're going to market soybeans off the combine, to do it now rather than when you get into the field, because prices are probably going to be a lot lower than they are now. I don't necessarily feel like that right now. I think we're basically range bound in soybeans between $13 and $14. Because the fact of the matter is we're the cheapest bean in the world right now, and China's been active. We had export sales of 1.5 million metric ton last week and continue to build flash sales on a daily basis. So I think that sales are going to continue to build in here, and that's a good demand basis that should absorb farmers selling.
And most of the sales that we're seeing, Garrett, by now it's all new crop. Is that right?
Oh, it's all new crop. Yeah, there's only a couple weeks left in the old crop market year. Focus is solely on new crop.
I want to turn our attention back to the wheat market. Garrett, you mentioned that we're seeing a lot of outside market interest in wheat, but we're also seeing rapid moves up and back down. How much of the tensions in the Black Sea have fundamentally impacted wheat shipments?
Fundamentally, how have they impacted? None.
Okay.
Russian wheat is basically pegged at $250 a ton. Is that bullish or is that bearish? And I think the biggest thing here that we have is with the rising interest rates, SEPD's wheat spread traded out to 28 cents. So in theory, that's going to, at this point, if it continues, is going to trigger a storage rate change in the D's March spread from 5 cents a month to 8 cents a month. So if they're going to be paying more carry in the market, that's going to encourage a fund short. So it's not going to be an easy fund short because of the headline risk and the algos of the Black Sea headlines. And it's not so much what Russia is doing to Ukraine, but it's the Ukraine retaliation in Russia, because they have definitely stepped up that counteroffensive and have attacked some interior Russian positions.
And so the idea is we're going to lock the grain in Russia is the risk.
Well, that's the big thing is that if it's not so much impacting Ukraine grain shipments, it's can we impact Russian grain shipments? Because if we start impacting Russian grain shipments, then we have a problem.
All right. Garrett, we've been talking for the past year about the interest in the cattle market. Prices are still near record levels. Where do you see live cattle going from here?
Well, we're still off a little bit. I'm a little bit watching this chart. Cash markets are friendly. We're still tight. We're gonna undermine packer margins in here. Watching the charts, though, we have a lower high. We need to go retest those highs to see if we're going to go back to $200. But I'm still friendly into the end of the year. I'm friendly but not stupid. I'm still hedging stuff after early 2024 because it makes sense and it's going to make us money.
Feeder cattle going to keep their rally running?
It sure looks like it, especially if corn doesn't have a story.
That's what it all comes down to. Garrett Toy, Ag Trader Talk, thanks for joining us this week.
Thanks for having me.
And now we'll take a look at what the USDA released on Friday for their World Agricultural Supply and Demand estimates. Well, in this most recent World Agricultural Supply and Demand estimates, the trade did indeed get that yield adjustment they were looking for. On the corn side of the ledger, production for new crop was pegged at 15.1 billion bushels, down 209 million from last month as yield was lowered from an expected 177.5 bushels per acre to 175.1. That decline of 2.4 bushels pulled new crop ending stocks down 60 million bushels to 2.2 billion at the end of this year. A similar story played out in soybeans, with production down 95 million bushels as yield did decline from an expected 52 bushels per acre to 50.9. In the end, new crop ending stocks dropped 55 million to 245 million bushels. The season average farm price was raised 30 cents to $12.70. In wheat, production was adjusted, down 5 million bushels from July at 1,734 million bushels. Yield was estimated at 45.8 bushels per acre, down just 0.3 of a bushel from the month prior. Ending stocks were pegged at 615 million bushels, down 23 million from a month ago, and the season average farm price was unchanged at $7.50 per bushel. Colby Ag Tech is brought to you by Copperhead Ag Products. Visit copperheadag.com for more information. Our tech expert friend Chad Colby is always bringing us the latest technology and gadgetry, but this week he's doing things a little differently, taking a look at technology that might have been featured here 50, 60, 70 years ago.
It's definitely nice to see some harvest action already here in 2023. This video clip comes from Kimbrell Farms down in Texas. They're about half done. But on this week's tech segment, I want to go back. Actually, I want to go way back and tell you about a really unique farm show that takes place every 2 years. I've been fortunate enough to attend, I think, all of them. This is the Half Century of Progress show in Rantoul, Illinois. Now, what makes this show unique is you can bring any kind of equipment that you want, and if you choose to, you can operate it. And as you can see, this monstrous plow here is going to do some field work here, but it's pretty amazing to see. The other thing I want you to notice is look at all the ATVs and golf carts. You can bring that. You can bring your camper. I had a nice talk with Max this week. He said things there look really well. The corn crop looks great. Obviously, this is an old Air Force base, so probably not the best soil conditions to raise crops in, but they always make sure that not only are they doing tillage, but before they do that, they've got to do some harvesting. And I know for me personally, I love seeing corn picking take place because I remember us doing it as a young man, and I remember when we were done, and that was a really good thing. But it's an amazing show if you've never attended. Trust me, there's so many stories that takes place when you get to see this old age iron running in the field. It just brings back a flood of memories. And I'm 52 years old, and let me tell you, there's a lot of things I see at this show that I remember when I was a young man. And you start to compare that to the flood of new technology that we're going to see released here later this month at Farm Progress Show. It kind of puts it all together. I love this old combine right here because I remember when my dad got one brand new. There's a picture of me standing next to it when I was a little guy, and I can tell you this, it does. It brings back a lot of memories even for me. So if you've never been to this show, put it on your bucket list. Our good friend Max Armstrong is going to be there for the entire show. I'll be there as well. I look forward to seeing many of you there. You can learn more information at halfcenturyofprogress.com. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Chad Colby.
Great place to make new memories with the old and young alike. That's in Rantoul, Illinois, the Half Century of Progress this year, August 24th through the 27th. Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. Max, it won't be long. The temperatures might start to cool off and harvest will be here.
Yeah, combines are in the shop. I know there have been some combine clinics held in the recent days. You had a recent discussion about getting ready for the harvest season, I know.
Summer may be in full swing, but harvest will be here before we know it. Across the country, growers are already getting prepared. Jake Jast, the sales and marketing manager with Copperhead Ag, fields calls from growers every day. And Jake, what's on the minds of farmers across the country this time of year?
Of course, this time of year, we're putting away a lot of corn planters. We've finished up planting season, got those corn planters, a lot of new parts on them, fixed up things that weren't right for this season. And now we're heavily focused on, for the manufacturing point, a fall farm show season. And we're talking a lot about concaves this time of year for combines.
When you're thinking concaves in the combines, Jake, what do you want growers to be thinking about?
Well, you know, the standard equipment that's available does have some problems that it presents. A lot of modern machines have 3 to 5 bushel of corn or beans going out the back through rotor loss. And they just don't have the adjustability to handle the changing conditions in the cornfield. And so, you know, if you had crops this season that have a lot of volunteer crop from last year coming up in them, you know, that's a place where Copperhead can step in and help those growers keep those bushels in the machine. We can get them into your bin. Help you make that money this season.
So it's concave season. Jake, what is it about Copperhead concaves that separates them from some of the options that are out there today?
Absolutely. The Copperhead concave system is highly adjustable. And it's also quite a bit more open than the other concave systems out there. So what that means is we have a larger space in between our bars. That helps us to unload really quickly in corn. And then as we go, we use a cover plate system to slow the grain down. So as we get into smaller grains like a soybean or a wheat, we're able to slow those beans down, get them fully threshed out. But we're so balanced that we can really keep the quality very high and really keep that machine operating at max capacity in all varieties of crop.
Now, of course, these machines, Jake, come in all different colors. Do you have concaves for all manufacturers?
We are not quite all, but we have done very well. We've got pretty much all the case and deer machines covered. X9 sets are new for this year. And then we also have the Fendt concaves out for this season as well for their ideal machines. So we're starting to get more and more covered. And we will have, I believe we'll have New Holland sets available for next season. So we're continuing to work on filling out that lineup.
Supply on hand. Jake, can you meet growers' needs ahead of this harvest season?
We're doing everything we can to do that. There's a few spots where there's a little tightness right now with supply, but for the most part, we've done a really good job of ordering ahead and being ready for this harvest season.
If we've got growers who are interested, they want to learn more, Jake, where should they go for information?
The first place to stop is copperheadag.com. My number's posted on there. I urge them to give me a call on my cell phone. And then we have a pretty extensive dealer network. You can go on our dealer locator on the website and find out who is close to you that you might be able to work with our products as well.
That's Jake Jazz, Sales and Marketing Manager with Copperhead Ag.
Well, Copperhead, I guess, will be at the Farm Progress Show, and so will many, many others.
They sure will, Max. It's hard to believe it is getting to be just around the corner. What are you most excited about? All your years at Farm Progress shows, what gets you jazzed?
I love meeting people that I haven't met before and seeing old friends that I haven't seen for a while. That's the neat thing about it for me personally, I guess, in addition to going around and seeing all of the exhibits and visiting with many exhibitors that I've come to know through the years. The numbers on this show are so doggone impressive. As you take a look at it, there'll be somewhere in the neighborhood of 600 exhibitors at the Farm Progress Show. There are 90 acres of exhibit space altogether there, 150 acres of parking, 360 acres in the field demonstrations at the Progress Show, where you'll hear yours truly describing what's going on there. 6 miles of streets out there at the Farm Progress Show site. 43,000 square feet of soybean-based asphalt under the Varied Industries tent. No more mud there. You can walk on a hard surface thanks to soybeans in part. And there'll be some 2,000 FFA members there, 2,000 plus, I think the infographic says. That's got to be a conservative number. And of course, they're all carrying freebies. If you got a free yardstick, if you got free caps, you got free buckets, they're all carrying those. Sometimes the FFA advisors will dispatch them, the FFA members, to go around and meet certain people and get their autograph, and that can make for a long day.
It certainly can, but it's so nice to see those young faces out there excited to see what's happening in agriculture, Max.
And don't forget the Farm Progress Show preview show. That'll be on RFD TV. That'll be coming up the night of August 24th, that Thursday night, ahead of the Farm Progress Show, which again is the 29th, 30th, and 31st of August, those last 3 days of August. It's always the Tuesday through Thursday, just ahead of Labor Day, in case you've wondered about that. There is a method to the madness.
That's so true. There certainly is. And Max, we're going to see you every day on the main stage at Farm Progress,
we're
correct?
looking forward to that. We'll be out there with you. We're looking forward to that indeed. Tickets can be bought online. That's the way to do it. You can save $5. You can have it on your device, and instead of paying $20, you can get them for $15. You can go in the gate, show your device, and it's a much quicker trip in.
Is that farmprogressshow.com, Max?
Farmprogressshow.com, the place to get all of the information for it. There's more coming up on this weekend's edition of This Week in Agribusiness. In addition to Greg Solier's Ag Weather Forecast, we have a trip out on Plan Smart, Grow Smart to share with you. Stay with us. This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by Case IH. Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. Yeah, I asked Mike to step out for a moment for a personal preference here, to visit with an old friend. Mike's grabbing coffee. He'll be right back. Tony Orlando is here from Firestone Ag. It's great to see you again, sir.
Max, absolutely a pleasure to be with you here on This Week in Agribusiness. Always very good to see you, and thank you again for having me come and talk here today.
Your role has changed a little bit since we last visited. You're getting your passport stamped off in these days, I understand.
Yeah, as of January this year, and now I have responsibilities in addition to North America, also for Europe for Bridgestone on agriculture, Latin America, Middle East, India, and Africa. Yep. So certainly spending a lot more time in and out of O'Hare than I've done in the past.
What have you seen globally? How does it compare or contrast with what's going on in North America?
Yeah, so certainly some things that are similar. There certainly is a propensity, what we'll call local for local. So local markets, say here in North America, want local supply from North America. Part of this is because of what happened through COVID with the supply chain interruptions, very, very expensive export cost, import cost. We're seeing that also in Europe. We're seeing that in Latin America. So that's one trend that is continuing to be very, very important for farmers. And secondly, the other thing is just, again, more premium technology for agriculture tires needed here, more change from a bias tire to a radial tire that can carry a heavier load than a bias tire. So those are the two trends that we're seeing quite extensively.
So does it place more emphasis on the domestic plants then, the plants you have operating in the U.S.?
So Bridgestone it absolutely does. So Bridgestone is the only company worldwide with agriculture tire plants in each of the three major regions. North America, of course, we've got this fantastic facility in Des Moines, Iowa. We also have a presence in Brazil, in Santo Andre, right off the coast, in Brazil, and then thirdly in Europe, in Puerto San Miguel in Spain. So we're the only ag tire company that has three footprints in those three regions, and that really will help us enable local for local.
What are the challenges that you see for agriculture, especially here in the United States right now? What's on your radar screen?
Yeah, certainly there's a drive towards more productivity. You're still continuing to see some consolidation of farming operations. So rather than two 500-acre farms, each needing a tractor and a combine, there's realization you can do all of that with one tractor and one combine. And that's putting more pressure on equipment and driving productivity, as well as at tires in addition. And so we're seeing that happening throughout the U.S. as well as internationally.
And there are opportunities, I'm sure, along with those challenges as well.
Certainly if you're an ag tire company like we are, that have premium technology, that have local distribution, that local for local, we are having a great year and well positioned to continue to supply the American farmer.
Hey, we're getting ready to shift gears into the harvest season here as farmers want to get their equipment ready to go. Any guidance you would offer in terms of making sure those tires are not ignored and they won't be a problem when time is of the essence at harvest?
So certainly, equipment uptime is critical, particularly as you go into that narrow window of harvest period. So the first thing you need to do is check those tires, making sure it's got the proper tire inflation pressure, there's been no stubble damage from the previous harvest season, making sure also that the valve stems are not needing repair, the rims are in good shape, the tread depth is adequate. So we've got a tire check system that we have in our Firestone Ag website you can go to make sure you're doing all that you can to make sure you have maximum equipment uptime during this critical harvest period.
Hit that website for us if you would.
FirestoneAg.com.
FirestoneAg.com.
That's it.
Great to see you, Tony. Take care of yourself. We'll look for you somewhere around the world one of these days.
Thank you, Max. Good to see you, and thank you again, everyone.
Tony Orlando joining us from Firestone Ag here on This Week at Agribusiness. Mike will be back in. Greg Solier now brings us his farm weather forecast for the week ahead, presented by Pivot BioProven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen. Turn to Pivot BioProven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com.
Well, it's time to take a look at the forecast. Meteorologist Greg Solier joins us now. And Greg, looking out at the Pacific Northwest, what do you anticipate to see in that area this week?
Another pattern shift, and we talk about the old hot ridge, that big dome of high pressure sinking air, and you get underneath it, and off to the races you go with temperatures. Well, there's another round of westward retrogression. Yeah, the upper pattern can back up at times, and we will see that over the western reaches of the country, and a build to the north, a jet stream pattern way into the central and southern Canadian Rockies.
southeast, slope down across the northern plains. And so here we go with maybe some triple-digit readings. It's been few and far between, but it's still been a warm season. But triple-digit readings, Willamette Valley, Rogue River Basin, and points on to the east. On the front side of this flow, the thunderstorm clusters will continue from time to time, and there are indications of a pretty good punch of cooler air building in for Big Sky Country and points on to the east as the week wears on. Here is that cold front, and again, some good coverage showers and thunderstorms. Drought again next to nil over the northern plains, improving western sections of the Corn Belt. The triple-digit readings still continue on around the Bitterroot chain, and again, the monsoon setup underneath the ridge continues too. Maybe a stray shower other than with the frontal boundary moving in to the Pacific Northwest, a stray shower chance for parts of Washington State. The hot ridge, the southern extent, is loaded up with moisture off the Pacific, off the Gulf, and the core of the heat for now into this part of the country as well as into the Pacific Northwest. And with an onshore flow, maybe a little bit of a fog and light rain and mist and drizzle coastal sections of California, afternoon showers and thunderstorms, and what's been a so-so monsoon season in the southwest. Note the cool air laying out on that northwest to southeast upper air pattern will move a frontal boundary and a couple of more disturbances into the northern and central plains with more storm activity. And it's just too hot to make anything organized. And what's blowtorched out there in West Texas cotton and pasture land, still an onshore flow in the Sierra, central and southern ranges. Mike may pick up a couple of showers and thunderstorms with a non-door related weather system offshore.
All right, Greg, we've seen some more activity across the northern parts of the Corn Belt rain-wise over the past couple weeks. Does that continue?
It looks like a little different look and feel. These blobs and thunderstorms that flare up late afternoon, early evening, and they mushroom out into these multi-inch rainmakers across the Corn Belt. A little different feel to the rain, but at least the rain pattern continues on. This is a pretty much early fall-like circulation through the Great Lakes region with some shower and thunderstorm activity. Cooler air across the Dakotas. The heat for now getting suppressed back west of the Missouri, but not long lasting the heat. It's back into play the middle and late portions of the week. The northwest to southeast jet stream pattern. Here is the warm front. Yes, it's a repeat of these ridge riding, at least ring of fire thunderstorm clusters are back into play over the western and southern Corn Belt locales, but we do get some dry time, and we need it in some of these fields across Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, where there's been upwards of a half a foot or more rain over the past few weeks and more than a foot of rain the past month and a half down towards the Ohio River Valley. Just plain old hot. 75% of those pasture lands are just too dry. Same with soil moisture, rotten corn, cotton conditions into the western reaches of Texas. A little monsoon set up into sections of Baja and a couple of showers and thunderstorms across the Delta region. Note the absence of anything tropical-wise still on what is much like a bath set up in those waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Storm clusters will be dominant over parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, the far southwestern Corn Belt. There's been too much rain there, but again, additional drought improvement at the same time.
Well, Greg, take us to the East Coast. What do you anticipate this next week?
Need some dry time in actually, would you believe, sections of the eastern Corn Belt, but still some showers and thunderstorms. A little different look and feel to this activity. Not this mushrooming out, half a foot or more rain on any given day. The rain, though, is not needed over this particular part of the northeast of New England, that Mount Washington locale up there. It's the wettest summertime season so far on record. And here we go again with another front through the Canadian prairie. Seasonal temperatures here. The warm front, the jet stream in from the northwest. We're again chasing thunderstorm clusters, western and southern Corn Belt later in the week. The tropics and the Atlantic, the Gulf are quiet, pretty stagnant weather pattern with afternoon showers and thunderstorms down through Florida. It's been a rough season down there, and little change with heat and humidity, scattered showers and thunderstorms afternoon and evening hours for the southeastern states late in the week.
Greg Solier is back with his extended farm weather forecast for the country, presented by Pivot Bio-Proven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen. Turn to Pivot Bio-Proven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com.
Meteorologist Greg Solier joins us here. And Greg, looking out to next week, where do you think the bulk of that precip is going to fall?
Well, again, after a bit of a respite, I think we're going to set up this ring of fire set up all over again. The ridge riding disturbances that originate over the northern Rockies or Pacific Northwest slide down through the northern plains. They energize at night and make their way to the east and southeast with, again, general uniform 1 to 2 inch amounts expected. But you know how some of these thunderstorms play out. You can take that number, perhaps double and even triple it. So still pretty busy
after a bit of a respite with severe weather for the plains into the southeastern states. 1/2 to maybe 2-inch downpours over the southeast. More rain. We don't need it for the northeast and New England. A scattering of afternoon and evening showers and thunderstorms with uneven amounts in the southwestern parts of the country. Again, spotty moisture in the Pacific Northwest. We may ignite in through the Intermountain West a couple of thunderstorms, but those will be more or less dry based, so we need to watch the fires and the lightning potential out across the west again.
Greg, you've mentioned that dome of heat a couple of times. Where do you see that spilling out temperature-wise the week of following that?
Here it comes. It is right at us here, and it's over the southern plains into the southeastern part of the country. Some of this cool air they'll be laying out over the next 7 to 10 days, still kind of spinning its way through the upper Midwest, northern plains, so that strengthens the jet stream pattern. And you wanted rain, you wanted additional drought relief, and you're going to get it for the northern plains. Much of the Corn Belt where we don't need any more rain for the northeast of New England. In absence of anything going on still, it's El Nino, strong winds up aloft over the Atlantic and the Gulf, normal precip over the southeastern part of the country, back to dry time over the western states and a system offshore in the Pacific, and probably back moving westward into the open waters of the Pacific.
Greg, the week of August 28th, it's the Farm Progress Show in Decatur. How's it looking?
You know, it's still capable this time of the year and that time of the year to get readings maybe up close to the 90-degree mark, but at least into the 80s. And we see the cooler air shifting to the north and east. The hot dome establishing itself over the southwestern part of the Corn Belt plains and into the southwestern sections of the country. Temperatures continue above average in the southeastern part of the country, where we think there'll be another system up through Baja, moisture off the Gulf, and maybe we pick up a little more monsoon moisture here. The pattern is still active from the Mississippi on to the east. Still nothing cooking in the Atlantic or the Gulf, and it's incredibly warm to hot down here. Winds are too strong up aloft. Back to dry time for the Pacific Northwest and sections of the northern Rockies.
All right, Greg, take us into the first full week of September, September 4th through the 10th.
It's meteorological autumn. Not really feeling that way over the southern states. We do get another lobe of cooler air rotating on in through the upper Midwest, sections of the Great Lakes into the northeast of New England. Temperatures about normal for the mid-Atlantic into the central plains and Pacific Northwest. Readings a few degrees above average there. And once again, no real shortage of getting at least timely, perhaps even some heavy rainfall in pockets and more severe weather potential too late in the season. But there's more moisture for parts of Big Sky Country, the northern plains into the northern and eastern Corn Belt locales. We do foresee finally into September here a little something coming in off the Atlantic, so we'll pick up some tropical moisture over the southeastern part of the country, ring it northward on the jet stream and up and down the eastern seaboard. Plenty of moisture with showers and thunderstorms.
Next on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, spotlighting another great American tractor.
We've seen it on the social media in recent days. There's a sense of urgency. Getting tractors, combines, pickers ready to go for the show at Rand Tool. This one will be headed that way. Max's Tractor Shed is brought to you by Mystic Lubricants. Mystic Lubricants producers are made to make it last. Well, the other day I saw the skeleton of a tractor sitting in a shop, and I was told they were getting it ready. 10 days ago, I think it was. They were getting it ready for Rand Tool. I thought to myself, there will be some long days and short nights in that project in the shop. This one doesn't need much attention. It was being sudsed up the other day. No restoration needed by Joe Virgin for his 1972 John Deere 4020. Ready to go across the state line to the half century of progress in Illinois. Not only is it dolled up, this fine 4020 is dualed up and ready for Rand Tool. In fact, one view I saw looked like Joe had a truckload of green machines all ready to go to the biggest vintage farm equipment show in America, the Half Century of Progress. We'll be there every minute of every day. That's coming up the 24th through the 27th, that Thursday through Sunday, Rand Tool, Illinois. We know many of you will be there. We look forward to meeting you there, seeing you at the Half Century of Progress. This guy, I know, will be there. Mark Stock from Big Iron Auctions, who joins us here now for his weekly report.
Well, hello, Max. Big Iron and Sullivan Auctioneers are honored to have the NEFCO auction on Monday, August 14th. NEFCO is from Avon, Illinois. 140 items will sell to the highest bidder, including a 2015 John Deere 1775 NT ExactEmerge 24-row 30 planter, a Kinsey 1040 grain cart. Max, there are 3 2022 year model John Deere combines, an S790, S780, and S770. Then on Tuesday, August the 15th, Beard Implement Company, with their locations in Illinois and Missouri, will sell 47 items. There's Case IH 2377 Combine, 2388 Combine, 2588 Combine, New Holland CR 9060 Combine. Rose Acres Farms will also sell 163 items on Tuesday, August the 15th. The equipment located in their Indiana locations consists of a John Deere 6115D mechanical front tractor, Case 621F wheel loader, and construction-related items. All quality equipment selling with no reserve on BigIron.com.
Our FFA Chapter Tribute is brought to you by Pioneer, developing new generations of seed innovations for new generations of farmers. Pioneer, what's next happens here. We always love meeting that next generation of agricultural leaders, and this week we're talking to Kylie Velasco. She serves as the Southwest Area Vice President for the Oklahoma State FFA. And Kylie, thanks for joining us this week.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I'm so excited for this opportunity.
Well, tell us a little bit, if you would, about where you grew up. Kylie, what's ag like in the southwest corner of Oklahoma?
Yeah, so agriculture, obviously, Southwest Oklahoma, there's a lot of crops, there's a lot of wheat. We do have a lot of farmland. I mean, my house, I personally am not a farmer, but I am surrounded by literally just fields. So it's just a lot of fields. And so that's fine. But like I said, my family is not a farmer. However, we are super involved in the FFA side of things. So my mom is actually the ag teacher at Weatherford High School. And so that was super fun. I got to grow up with her being my ag teacher, and that was something that I really enjoyed. But as far as ag is looking like we're super involved in the FFA side of things, and also agriculture, lots of beef and lots of farmland.
Well, I'm curious about that FFA busyness. Kylie, I understand school is getting underway this week in Oklahoma. What does the first couple weeks of school look like to a state officer?
Yeah, so Weatherford High School, where I grew up, we actually started school today, but I am going to go to Oklahoma State University in college, so I'll be a freshman at Oklahoma State, and that doesn't start till the 16th. So there's a little bit of room to kind of do things, and a lot of what this week will look like is we'll go to lots of chapters. A very common thing to have is ice cream socials. And so that's a good way for chapters to just kind of get out and to kind of get to know their community and their chapter members, their chapter officers. So we've been invited to actually a few ice cream socials. So the state officers will get to split up and kind of go around the state and get to talk with those FFA members and their chapters in their community. So that's something that we'll do. And then whenever school actually gets started, we will start COLT conferences. So what that is chapter officer leadership training. So there are 5 areas in Oklahoma. It's split up. So we have the 5 area vice presidents, and we'll get to go around to each of those areas. I think it's one per week, once every Tuesday, and we get to spend a day with all the chapter officers in that area, and we'll kind of just get to train them to be chapter officers and how to better serve their chapters and how to better know their chapters.
What an opportunity, Kylie. We wish you the best of luck. That's Kylie Velasco, Southwest Area Vice President for the Oklahoma FFA. As we get later in the season, oftentimes you can see those weeds that maybe escaped the program. Max had a chance recently to sit down with Liam Vincent of BASF for the next edition in our Plan Smart, Grow Smart series, looking at the details of weed eradication.
Let's talk about some of the challenges growers face, especially when you look at some of those cutoff dates for herbicide usage. What are the kinds of things they're up against here?
Obviously, they're following the label. The label is the law, and a lot of those cutoffs have to do with growth stage, obviously, and some of them are calendar based. And so, the later in the year you go, the more difficult it is sometimes to control weeds, whether that's because of a just ambient temperature, or you run into pre-harvest interval challenges. Or you start thinking about rotational intervals, because when you start to combine things in that late post-emergent stage, it may affect your ability to grow a crop the next year.
What can the producer do to minimize those late season challenges? Certain strategies that you would recommend?
I think all of it's about a plan. It's about having a solid plan for your weed control program going into the year. So you start with a really robust pre-emergence program and have planned post-emergence and residual sprays as well. to keep weeds at bay. And I think when you do that, you protect your crop and you avoid having to go into these later season applications, which honestly, a lot of them are going in after weeds that are too big, or they're trying to do like a revenge spray or something on weeds that they may have already tried to kill and failed to control.
Is there any other strategy other than a herbicide approach?
I think after the application cutoff stage, there are really very few options to go out and control weeds. You start to, again, start to violate the label, and really the recommendation that nobody really likes to think about is going back to hand roguing, going out and walking those fields and taking weeds down. Certainly at a certain density that does or doesn't make sense, but from an herbicide standpoint, there are few to no herbicides labeled after, for example, in the soybean crop after that R2 stage.
So generally speaking, if you want to avoid those late season challenges, kind of summarize the best approach to take.
Sure. I think there's some kind of novel ideas, but some tried and true ones as well. Use residuals. Trust your residual to go out with your post-emergence application. Trust that it can carry you through to crop canopy and to yield.
Where do you recommend growers go for more information?
I think we've got the best sales team in the industry, and you look at your agronomic service rep, your business representative, or your local tech service rep. They can point you in the right direction.
Thank you, Max. It's a great reminder. The planning season never ends on a farm. Folks, you can see all of our Plan Smart, Grow Smart series from our friends with BASF on the website. Visit plansmartgrowsmart.com. Thanks for tuning in this week for This Week in Agribusiness. We will be back next week, same time, same place, right here. And Max Armstrong will be joining me behind the desk once again. Have a great week, everybody.
This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Case IH. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by Omax Communications in association with 22 Creative Group. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.